Greetings, everyone. Nate the Nerdarchy here from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds, hanging out with some nerds.
Nerdarchy Ted.
Nerdarchy Dave.
And today we're talking about broken D&D rules.
Jump down to the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy the newsletter, get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
Now for some tales from our games and how we broke the rules. So in my recent Gen Con excursion, we played a pickup game of 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons with Cody from Taking 20, Juice, GM Juice, Doug from the website for Nerdarchy, and my son. And we had something like come up, right? So Juice was playing a barbarian, and his I think his ideal was I always have a backup plan. But his flaw was I never stick to the plan. So they come up with this elaborate plan to disguise my son, the Dragonborn, as a bugbear, and send him into the hideout first. So they go through this whole process. They make the checks. He looks kind of like a bugbear. And then the barbarian just charges through the cave.
So did he just like Leroy Jenkins?
He totally Leroy Jenkins. And he gets...
I didn't hear the story yet. I'm sorry.
And he gets ambushed by a bugbear guardian and gets dropped. So the bard next, who's played by Doug, goes up, looks, and sees what's going on. Sees this barbarian dwarf down and unconscious. Sees this bugbear standing over him, dual wielding morning stars. So he decides to do a pratfall, make it look like he falls on a sword, because there was like a ledge where the bugbear was hiding, and the tunnel kind of sloped down. So he's like, I'm going to do a pratfall and make it seem like I fall on my sword and pound myself and land next to the dwarf. So he makes some checks and he does that. And as he lands next to the dwarf, he whispers the heroism spell into his ear. And now the bugbear is completely confused, has no idea what's going on. The rest of the party is kind of looking on, trying to decide what to do. And the way that spell works is you get 3 temporary hit points every round. He's unconscious, though. We don't actually know what the rule is at the table. We're all like YouTubers, right? But we don't know. We're like, and I'm like, I'm not going to look it up. I don't care. But for 2 reasons. 1, I thought it's faster. And 2, I just thought it would be funny for the dwarf barbarian to get up, Undertaker style, after being KO'd at the beginning of the round. He does. He rages again. He attacks. He gets attacked. He gets knocked out again. Because he only had 3 hit points. So, next round, same thing. 3 hit points comes up. So, this goes on for like 3 or 4 rounds. And later on, we sent a thing into Sage Advice, and they actually answered it right away. And it's like we totally did the rules wrong. But it would have been so much less fun had we done them right. We had so much fun at the table. And I don't know if that comes through even retelling the story. But during the actual session, during the gameplay, 5 dudes playing D&D, it was a blast. And I feel like had we played it right, it would have been less fun.
It was more heroic that way. And that's the spell's name.
Absolutely. Well, absolutely. Yeah. I would have thought that the spell would have been called, Chumbawamba.
Yeah. That would have been appropriate. So what about you guys? You ever break the rules just to make the game more fun?
Well, those of us and those of you who, played the earlier editions, there were specific rules for crafting magic items. And in my game, I had a wizard, Asen Shard Gale, who the player is still partly in that mindset of, well, as a wizard, I should be able to make magic items. So he's like, I want to create this ring of water walking. And, I'm like, okay, well, there's no rules. Let me try and figure things out. So I came up with, well, maybe spend some money, have him make some checks, came up with DCs, and he didn't make it. So
poof, no magic item.
part of me and, people at the table really expected it to be like, okay, well, that's just a wasted resource, both time and money. But rather than making nothing, I'm like, well, what if what did it wind up being? Create water 3 times a day or something?
Yeah, ring of create water 3 times
So
a day.
it still is a ring. It still is a magic item.
It involves water.
It involved water,
Yeah.
but it was definitely minor in power in relation to what was originally the intent. Rather than completely screw the player over, I said, well, you can have this instead. And I think it was appreciative. It's not quite as funny a story. It's not a, heroic feat that wound up happening, but I think a on-the-fly decision wound up, not disappointing the player.
Also, if I recall correctly, like he didn't make the DCs you set, but he didn't fail by that much either. So to me, it just seems like you just tiered the success levels more so than, okay, this is going to be a pass-fail.
Mm-hmm.
Which I do that with stuff all the time. And I think it does make the game a lot more interesting.
Having that tiered success rate is something that I think it definitely adds a whole nother layer to the game, where it's like, oh, well, do you know anything about this Dragon Lord? Okay, well, if he's really rare, then, well, that check might be a 20. But that gives you what you need to know. If you get an 18 or you get a 15, you still might know something. It's probably not going to give you all the information or any specifics on what you're looking for, but it might give you something, and that could be a clue to then go investigate or find more.
Yeah, maybe you could research and find the book that you wouldn't have found otherwise.
Right.
Yeah. Failures in the game are so much more fun when they lead to more adventure than it's just a brick wall.
Yes.
So with my instance, I was playing an online game for fans, Spiders from Mars, and basically there were all these phase spiders involved. And I had said, hey guys, your 10th level, bring characters that can kill stuff, because as far as I knew, it was going to be like a crazy epic levels of fight based on the CR levels in the game and how everything was stacked together. Well, something came up immediately. There was a high-level assassin and a high-level barbarian, and that was kind of like, well, I've got phase spiders, and they're going to teleport in or phase in from the ethereal plane, and they're not going to surprise over half the party, or like half the party's not going to get surprised. So it's like, well, rather than just pretty much murderlate the only player that was going to be surprised all the time, because they didn't have a high dex, so they usually always had lower initiative, as well as they didn't have any skills that were going to alleviate the problem with being surprised by things jumping out of the ethereal plane. So it's like, well, that's not going to be fun for that player if I just gang up on them every single time. So instead I just kind of made it so that the barbarian's level of awareness, supernatural levels of awareness, and the assassin's skilled level of awareness, just said kind of, they phase in, but the barbarian and the assassin just kind of handle it. They position themselves in such a way because they know something's going to happen, like immediately right before it happens. Or they, react supernaturally quick. So I just had it be that they kind of protected the party with their level of awareness, rather than going by the rules and just pretty much killing the wizard every single time.
Although it can be fun to just kill the wizard sometimes.
I hit him hard several times, and he got crits against him. But, I could have just piled up all the face spiders on him, and maybe that's what the face spiders would have did, or the things controlling the face spiders would have done. But at the same time, it would have just been like, okay, half the table's not having fun. So,
right, so you kind of just said, okay, you basically extended the ability of 2/3 of the party to the other third and said, you know what, they're going to move, they're going to cover, they're going to protect the wizard, so we're just going to do normal initiative instead of this one, dog pile on him.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with changing the game when you think it's going to make it more fun for the players in the game.
And, you as the DM, you're one of those players. So if you think you have something that's going to change the game or change the rules so that everyone has more fun, it can't be wrong.
Now, I will say that if this was on a one-shot and I was with these people for like a year-long campaign, I would totally be fine with like one time this guy's abilities just don't line up with the threat, and this person has a hard time with it. Okay, takes more damage, gets more attacks. People have got to be like, all right, we got to be more aware of this and protect our wizard or our cleric or whatever. But because it was only a short 3-hour game, he was going to have a miserable time for the 3 hours. And that's like way different than, a couple encounters are really hard for the wizard or really hard for the fighter because he doesn't have ranged attacks and they're all ranged attacks. When you that kind of thing.
Sorry, when you have a ongoing game, you can make it times where this one character is targeted or it's harder for them, because that's the way stories flow and evolve. There's obstacles that characters have to overcome. So in an ongoing game, those things I think should be taken into account. But I think you made the right choice for a one shot. Having one person have a miserable time because he doesn't have that ability. Yeah.
Yeah. So made the call for adjusting the rules rather than following the rules as they're written.
I must say though, I've killed a fan, and it wasn't one shot. Fortunately, happened at the end, and also former Nerdarchist Ryan also performed a TPK on a party as well. So
hey, it happens. TPKs happen.
It's just it's all about timing, right? To have someone die at the very beginning is kind of lame and boring, and then what do you do? And then the rest of the party has a hard time. But if you can time it just right and kill them at the end,
if you can get to the final encounter and get that kill, then it's not as big.
It could be epic. It could be heroic. Their death maybe could even have a little meaning.
Yeah, I mean, I almost had a character death in my last game. So,
woo!
In your game.
Did I almost kill you?
Well, I mean, I was down twice.
That doesn't count. You didn't even have 2 failed death saves. But the question is, guys, how do you break the rules in your game to make them more fun? We got a place for that. It's called the comments. While you're down there, like, share, and subscribe.
You can check out the articles over at nerdarchy.com.
You can tweet at us on Twitter at Nerdarchy.
So until next time,
stay nerdy.
The Dragonborn as a bugbear and send him into the hideout first. So they go through this whole process. They make the checks. He looks kind of like a bugbear. And then the barbarian just charges through the cave. He's with Cody from Taking 20, Juice, GM Juice, Doug from the website for Nerdarchy, and my son. And we had something like come up, right? So Juice was playing a barbarian.
Get the newsletter, get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
Now for some tales from our games and how we broke the rules. So in my recent Gen Con excursion, we played a pickup game of 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, and his I think his ideal was I always have a backup plan. But his flaw was I never stick to the plan. So they come up with this elaborate plan to disguise my son.
Greetings, everyone. Nate the Nerdarch here from Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds, hanging out with some nerds.
Nerdarchist Ted.
Nerdarchist Dave.
And today we're talking about broken D&D rules.
Jump down to the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy.